Bill Carter, the media writer for the New York Times, wrote on this today. He joins us now. How surprised were you? Let me start with the Letterman retirement. More surprised Letterman retiring or that Colbert is taking his place?
Well, I don't think anybody could have been totally surprised at Dave retiring since he was turning 67, but it was certainly the timing surprised everybody. I think even the CBS people told me they knew it was going to come sometime in the next few months, but that Dave sort of decided, on that date maybe that it was a good night to do it. So that was a bit of a surprise.
Okay, Colbert not being the Stephen Colbert we know. Who is Stephen Colbert?
Well, the real guy is a very modest fellow, lives a very quiet life in a suburban house in New Jersey, and for years used to teach CCD at the Catholic school in his neighborhood, even while he was on the air. That's not the character he plays. Now, he's obviously not going to be that guy because I don't know if that guy's very funny, but he's going to be, the regular performer of Stephen Colbert, who he was before he took on this character, which is a guy with great range who does a lot of different things, can sing and dance, and a lot of improv comedy. He's very good at that, and he's also a pretty good actor. So I think he's going to have an opportunity to show a lot of those skills.
As strange as this may sound, was Jon Stewart maybe too political to get that job as opposed to Stephen Colbert?
Oh, no. Jon Stewart had no interest in the job.
Oh, he didn't?
No. John would have taken a network job 10 years ago.
Okay.
In fact, he was really up for the Kimmel job before Kimmel got it. And when Dave himself was being wooed by ABC, he was under an agreement with CBS that if Dave had jumped to ABC at the time, that was 2002, John would have taken the CBS job then. But since he's become as big as he is in Daily Show, I mean, the guy's hosted the Oscars twice. How much bigger does he have to get? He's so comfortable in that job and happy in that job. He does not want a network job. He doesn't need it.
Who else was in play for this job?
I think Colbert, and I wrote this as best I could without overtly saying I would lay money on it. Colbert was by far the favorite. I think they had to think about women. And so, if Tina Fey had called them, that would have been a factor, although there's not many other women, I think, at that level that they would jump over Colbert. I think Colbert was syncing up his representation was syncing up his contracts with Dave's for 2 or 3 cycles. So it was evident to CBS who the guy was who most wanted that job. And as Leslie Moonves, head of CBS, said to me, they wanted to find the smartest guy they could possibly find to replace someone as smart as Letterman, and Colbert just fit that description.
I thought that Tina Fey sort of jumping over to CBS was going to be tough with her friendship with Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon and
Lorne Michaels.
Yeah, and Lorne Michaels.
Yes,
so
no question, that would have been pretty odd, and so that's why it was always a crazy long shot. I just bring her name up. I don't think it was ever really discussed because that's the type of talent that it would have taken for them to consider somebody other than Colbert.
What do you make of Rush Limbaugh's reaction saying CBS has declared war on the heartland of America?
Well, I think it's sort of predictable. I mean, Colbert was playing a conservative blowhard character on his show, so he was sending up that kind of a show, and I'm sure that meant they took offense. But Colbert's not going to do that on this show. He has to be broader than that. He has to play the heartland. And by the way, this is not a guy, a creature of New York media. He grew up in South Carolina, went to college at Northwestern. He isn't, an elitist media figure. I think he'll be quite broad and will not play to a narrow political demographic.
We're talking to Bill Carter, the media writer for the New York Times, author of The Late Shift and The War for Late Night. You've made, I'm not going to say a career out of it, but you studied this with the late night, and
yes.
I like the friction between, it's almost like athletes nowadays, they all get along.
Yes.
All these late night hosts get along. I liked it when there was territorial.
Believe me,
feeling.
I liked that. That was what I could write about. No, when Conan and Jay, that was amazing stuff going on there. And, of course, Kimmel did not like Leno. And the 3 guys now, you have some amazing connections because Fallon and Colbert have been on each other's shows and done a lot of things together. I mean, Colbert did a walk-on on Fallon's premiere in the Tonight Show. They've had a whole range of things going on, and Kimmel and Colbert have the same agent. And they're incredibly close guys. So I don't think that kind of friction is going to pop up, although it's going to be super-duper competitive. I mean, these guys, this is three guys who I think are really going to up the ante because they're going to try to really draw attention to themselves over the next few years. It's going to be interesting to watch.
I think it's great. I think you're seeing everybody, and they all grew up as Letterman fans. They're going back to when Dave first started, and as I mentioned about 15 minutes ago, Bill, there were times I'd watch Letterman, and I got the feeling that they were trying the skit for the first time on TV, that they hadn't tried it. There is a, let's take some chances, have some fun, let's make it a little bit awkward. And you got some brilliant, brilliant talent there late night.
No question. And you're right. These guys did grow up on Letterman. And what they saw was inventive comedy, not just doing, jokes. And that's what they're going to show. I think you're going to see a lot of bits that can play on the Internet because that's the way the future is going. You're going to see things that we haven't thought of. And people are saying to me, well, what will Colbert do? And I'll say, I don't know what he's going to do, and I don't think he knows yet because they're going to come up with the ideas, and that's what he's going to welcome is fresh ideas. And, you have to give a lot of credit to Fallon because he's really brought energy to the Tonight Show and done some amazing, high energy, creative, music-oriented bits. So I think we're going to see some great comedy.
Is Fallon the future?
Yeah, I do think so. I didn't think so when he started because I didn't know. He disappeared for a while from Saturday Night Live, and when he got the late night show, he was a little awkward. But boy, he's a talented guy. He has deep, deep wells of talent, and he brings this energy and fun to it. He's making it more a variety show. It doesn't feel like a stand-up act that would go to Vegas. That was kind of Johnny and Leno's style, and I think it's really refreshing, and people have really responded. I mean, his numbers are great, and I do think the other two have to really think about his potential to run away with it. They have to get in there and fight for some numbers.
Before I let you go, David Letterman's legacy.
Well, he's the guy. I mean, to me, he's the guy who redefined this form. I mean, this was a form that was created, in the 50s, and it really stayed pretty much the same as that. I mean, Carson was brilliant at it, but, it was, a guy sitting behind a desk smoking and talking to people and after doing a little stand-up. And, and Jay, I think, did a traditional show because he wanted to get the biggest audience. But Dave was a broadcaster, and he thought of it in television terms, not just in comedy terms. The things he did were, how do I use this medium? Like I'll do a show that completely, goes around 360 degrees with the camera. All the inventive stuff he did, elevator raises in the building, and all that, what he called found comedy. That was totally new, and he changed the form. And he also brought a sort of an ironic kind of distance from it. It wasn't always a sincere show. And I think all of that has filtered down through the next generation, and all over television and all over comedy, you see the influence of David Letterman.
Letterman's first guest was Bill Murray.
Yes.
Think that will be his last guest?
Yes, I would be surprised if it wasn't because it's the kind of thing Dave would do. But I think we're going to see Dave do the sort of thing that Johnny did in his last year and have, all the familiar guests come back. And it'll be interesting. I feel bad for Kimmel in a way because he's got to face the last of Dave, which is going to be, interesting to people. And then the first of Colbert is going to be interesting to people and Fallon at the same time. So he faces a tough task.
Minorities, is there going to be kind of blowback on, Chris? Did Chris Rock, was he interested?
No,
or anybody
Chris. I don't think Chris Rock was a factor at all. I don't think he wants to do that. He did a thing on HBO for a while, once a week. It takes your life over. If you want to do something else, you can't be a late night host. You're not going to do anything else. So you have to be committed totally to this. I think what we'll see, I do think the openings that have been created here, and I think, obviously the Colbert opening on Comedy Central and presumably the Craig Ferguson opening, I don't think he'll want to stay around after being passed over. Those openings will be interesting to see. I think they'll heavily consider a woman or a minority for those jobs. And really, that's the right move because I don't think there was a player. I mean, Chris Rock is a big enough star, but he wasn't interested. But a player interested who was at that level. You got to have, you can't just put a person in because they're a minority or a woman. They got to be at the star level of Colbert. But you get to that level by getting to 12:30 show, or getting the second-ranked show, and I think it's a good opportunity to break through there.
Bill, thanks for joining us on short notice. We appreciate it.
Great to talk to you, man.
Bill Carter, a media reporter for the New York Times, wrote that great book, The Late Shift. And then you got an idea of what it's like, sort of the cutthroat business, Letterman and Leno. It's exciting times, though, to watch late night. I got to the point where I didn't watch that much. I like Leno, but I sort of knew what I was getting there. There would be some jokes, and he's a very nice guy. But there wasn't anything that was edgy. And Dave, I thought at times could be edgy. At times he would be the old man to tell you to get off his lawn. But I just had great appreciation for what he did.